about what's the World Chefs Congress is going to be happening in 2026. It is going to be happening in Newport, Wales. I am so excited to see so many of you in person. Next May is from May 16th to 19th. It is going to be a fabulous Congress. The planning is well underway already, and I can't wait. It'll have lots of great speakers, so many great things to learn, and just a great networking experience for everyone who goes. I've been to quite a few of them now, and the Congress, there's nothing else like it. You never feel more connected than when you go to a Congress. And thank you, Isla, for setting that up for us. I appreciate it. We are here. I'm Chef Shonah Chalmers. I am the chair for the Feed the Planet Committee for World Chefs, and welcome to World Chef Sustainability Around the World. I'm thrilled to be your moderator today as we explore one of the most exciting and perhaps maybe unexpected developments in sustainable cuisine. We're talking about insect protein. Maybe some of you at home have heard about this before, and maybe some of you have dabbled in it, but we have some great experts here. I see online we've got some people saying hello from Myanmar and from Turkey, the Maldives. And where else? Oh, Iraq is here, Rwanda. I try not to miss anyone. Sri Lanka is here. Oh, Boston, Massachusetts, and Singapore. Great to see all of you here. I love doing this every month. Once a month, I get to sit down with the whole world and explore a new topic. It's so much fun. It really fills my heart to feel so connected to all the world in such a meaningful way. Today, we are joined by two great experts. They're leaders in this field. We're going to be talking about insect proteins. You know, going from novelty to normal is what we're going to do. How do we prepare it? How are they grown? And how do we communicate these kind of ingredients to our guests if we decide to try it too, right? So I am going to introduce you first to Chef Mark Jachecki. So he is a professor of culinary arts at the Humber Polytechnic, and where he's been guiding a lot of our next generations on innovation and into the kitchen and how to become a chef. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, everybody.
We'll get into your role in a little bit. I also want to introduce Jakub Dzamba. He's the co-founder and CEO of Third Millennium Farming. He's a pioneer urban cricket farmer that's rethinking protein production for the 21st century. He's also an architect by training, bringing unique systems and thinking approach to food production. So, good morning, Jakub.
Morning.
Let's jump in right away. I want to see where you're at. So as you can see, Mark is a chef, and Jakub is the grower and founder of the cricket farming. So take us through where you're at right now, and then we can get a little more into the culinary side of things.
Sure. Are you talking to me? Or
yes, Jakub, go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to flip my camera here. So this is our hot room. It's about this is about 60 square meters and about 5 meters high. We have about 750 farming bins in here, and I'm just going to show you an example of what one of them looks like. This is one of our grow out bins. So we have a mesh top here to keep the crickets in and all the other bugs that may exist here out. We farm them on this type of harborage, so egg flats. And this is a bin that's almost full-size crickets. So if I open it here, you should see a bunch of crickets hopefully moving around. And this bin will give us about 2.5 kilograms a month.
Okay.
And so at the bottom here, we have what we call the cricket frass. And that's a mixture of, it's a dry sand-like substance. It's a little bit of their poop, but also the shells that fall off of them. And those shells that fall off of them, we can talk more about it later if you'd like, but they are really integral to promoting plant microbiomes in soil and stimulating growth and blooming and all kinds of very, very interesting stuff. It almost seems more exciting than the crickets themselves sometimes. And so this is one bin, about 2.5 kilos per month, every 27 days or so.
Okay.
750 bins across here. So
wow.
This room, about 60 square meters, gives us more than 1,500 kilos per month. Which is really high for a space this small. And in
Yes.
case you'd like to see the little guys, here is where we hatch the crickets. This is a hatching tote. And so if I flip this, you should see a bunch of little guys
Oh
running
yeah.
around. We
Yeah,
call
yeah.
those pinheads. And so within 4 weeks, they go from this size, which is less than 1 by 1 millimeter,
Yes.
to a cricket that is maybe 1 by 2 centimeters. So in 4 weeks, they increase their size by over 1,000 times in weight and
Oh.
volume.
What do they feed on?
So right now we are still feeding. Most of the crickets are still fed on a modified chicken mash,
Okay.
so modified chicken feed. But we're not happy with that because the biggest footprint of the farming is growing that feed. And
Yes.
so with the research we're doing with the frass, we're actually we're innovating a bunch of, we call them micro crops, and we are able to farm those in the same space as the crickets and feed the crickets with that. So we hope by next year we'll be farming over half of our feed in the same space as the crickets, which would be revolutionary in terms of shrinking the footprint.
Yeah, yeah. How did you go from crickets to the crickets you're doing now? Like the scaling up, how long did that take?
It took it took a long time to go from something the size of a garage, like a one-car garage, to this,
Yeah.
because we had to. There was a lot of issues in scaling in terms of the sensitivity of the feed supply and scaling that up, and other pests and stuff getting in the way. But now
Okay.
we seem to have hit kind of a mode accelerator where we're able to scale up a lot faster. So this has doubled in size in the last 6 months, and we can keep going in that direction.
Fascinating. So much innovation. I mean, so I'm sure you've had a
It's
lot of
toasty in here.
questions.
It's 34 Celsius.
That's okay. I'm sure you've had a lot of questions that some chefs are intrigued but a little hesitant about this. Uh, why are they such a sustainable alternative? That's really my big question for you, I guess. How does this protein source match up against any other protein source?
So the typical talking points are that they're better at something called feed conversion efficiency. So whereas say cows are easy to pick on, but let's say we take a chicken or something, which is the most efficient animal that we typically farm. They need about 2 kilos of feed to produce 1 kilo of poultry of meat.
Okay.
And crickets are about they're about 25% better, so they need about 1.5 kilos of feed to produce 1 kilo of crickets. There's also other efficiencies. They take a lot less water. They don't produce any methane, which is about 10% of greenhouse gases come from agriculture. So this
Okay.
would scale that back. But by far the biggest thing that we are trying to realize, which would eclipse all of that manyfold, is reducing growing the feed in house with frass.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the footprint of the livestock farming is less than 1% of the footprint of the crops that you need to farm to feed those animals. And
Huh.
so if we can produce all of that feed in-house, we reduce the footprint of farming by more than 99%. And that's really where the holy grail of the insect farming efficiency is.
That's amazing. You can't talk more sustainable than that, really, right? So, in your farming, I mean, how are you doing this? Like in the city, or is this in the middle, out in the woods somewhere where no one can see you, or your approach of how you
No, no,
do this?
we wanted to prove a point that it can. I mean, urban agriculture in general, it's tough to make a case for it because you'll
Yeah,
never grow enough, tomatoes per square foot to compete against a lawyer's office or a mechanic or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
So we wanted to prove that this can be done in the city. So we're just north of Pearson Airport in Toronto. Our
Okay.
neighbors are an auto mechanic shop and a carpenter and a restaurant. And we've been here for about 11 years now. So we're proving that it does produce at a density high enough that we can support this in cities. And then there's all kinds of interesting architectural options to scale it out from there, where you can imagine, an extra elevator shaft in a new
Yeah.
condominium that does the super vertical version of cricket farming. And you start having urban farmers that do the microcrops and the crickets, and suddenly you're connecting farm to fork in a much more literal way,
Yeah.
where everybody knows everyone. And we feel that ethics works better at a small scale. So if you know the people growing your food, then hopefully everything is a little bit more ethical than it otherwise would be.
For sure. So I'm just going to flip over to Mark for a second. So when chefs are looking at this product, because you've worked with it from sort of conception of live crickets, because I remember seeing it the first time. I freaked out a little bit, but to actually putting it into product, what kind of products are chefs looking for, and what have you created working together?
Well, what I first tried to do that we have a the CNE or this exhibition here at the end of the summer, and there's all these kind of cool foods that happen, and really trying to get this alternative protein out there, not to be preachy, but to get it into food that is recognizable. So not totally replacing, but sort of like use it almost like as a fortifying protein to
Okay.
start, because yeah, I have to get some
Buy-in.
I got some buy-in, right?
Yeah.
So the first one I did was I think what can I do as a hot dog? So I did a hot dog, and normal chefs, we go, okay, so let's start at 50-50. So 50% steer and 50% cricket. Oh my God, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was the one thing I learned is that the crickets are so lean,
Yeah.
they take all water, all fat. So all the hot dog, they just burst, and
Oh my
the roots
gosh.
smell like cricket, right?
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
so then, doing the cuttings there, I landed at 15%, and
Yeah.
50% worked out really, really well. And everybody, because it was recognizable, were liking it. But then I went over and above, and I took some of the crickets, and they were toasted like little croutons on top of the hot dog too. And
Yeah.
that was now shock value because people can see it, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
those are the things that people, I think, really want to try something new in a controlled scenario, and that's the best way to do it at like an exhibition where you've got like
Large
all this
formats,
stuff
right?
happening,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's super fun. So, what
Hmm.
sort of products other than the hot dog can chefs experiment with? Because someone from India is asking, like, how could we incorporate it into Indian cuisine? What sort of products have come out of this? Like, is it all just sort of a dried cricket, like with legs, or is it?
I'm
Oh,
glad
okay.
you asked that question.
Come a little more into your screen so I can
So
see
this
the.
is actually from Jacob's farm, and
Okay.
the first thing is, he controls the food, he controls everything else for the farming. So this is like CFIA approved, which means it's fit for human consumption. That's the first thing you have to do. You just can't go and catch crickets out in the wilderness because you don't know what they've eaten. You can't control what
That's
they've
right.
eaten. So these ones here, the crickets actually, here's some frozen ones, right? So
Ah,
frozen ones here, and they are kind of plump and frozen, and you can, cook them up a little bit like in a stir fry or whatnot. And they are a relative of shellfish. So if I tell you the story, and there's a story behind all of our food, and you eat it, you can sort of taste it a little bit,
okay.
right? If when you're mixing it in, and you can't really mix it in with the same amount of protein that you would normally use, like say beef or chicken or whatever, because it's not as, I guess, palatable at that point in time. But the amount of protein that you actually get for it is more than beef, is
Mm,
more than bison, is more than everything else.
okay. So it's
So
nutrient dense then.
nutrient dense. It has naturally occurring prebiotics and probiotics because you eat the entire shell,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is
Okay.
good for the gut biome. It has all the essential amino acids, which no other protein really has. That's an animal protein.
Okay.
So it starts out like this, and then I haven't used a lot in this form yet. I used them when I've taken these now and I've toasted them. So everybody loves something crunchy.
Yeah.
Right. So if you toast them gently, and make them crunchy, and you put in a little bit of oils come out of them, and you put a little bit of seasoning on them, you can make a chili lime one for a little garnish. For a salad is great. You can do a hot chili, a honey spice, and anything that you would flavor nuts for, you can do with crickets.
Okay. All right.
So, and then whenever you can put something crunchy on something, there you go, you've got that.
That's amazing. So does it come, so you can get it in the powder? How can it translate into actual food that chefs can use then, I guess is.
Well, chefs are going to have to get creative. So using them as in their minds, like a seasoning, or
Yeah.
instead of like in like if you take whatever protein you're using and you can cut 10 to 50% of that with some of the cricket,
Yeah.
that would get a lot of buy-in from whoever you're serving it to. So like a chicken stir fry with cricket or a beef stir fry with cricket, that would work well. You could make like with the powder alone, it when you after you toast them, they have a great nutty flavor, like a noisette flavor.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So I've put this in a mango lassi, so I did a fortified mango lassi with this, and it was fantastic because it had a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of the nut, and it was great
Oh,
flavor there.
super fun.
You can bake with it.
Oh, yeah, because someone's asking if they can use it for desserts.
Yeah, for desserts. So when you're baking with it, again, you can cut any flour with it 10% with the cricket. I'd like 10 to 50% is my mean because it is so dense in the protein that it just robs all the water and it doesn't really help with the gluten production. So
Okay.
if you make a pizza dough or a bread, you take 10% of this, you've now fortified it with way more protein. You can do it also with anywhere you would want to put like a ground nut flavor.
Okay.
The butter is fantastic. You can make cookies with them. You can make, stuff like that. And when you've toasted them first and you add some other sweet flavorings, you don't even taste cricket, you just taste crunchy.
Fun. Okay, so I'm going to come back to Mark in a second, but there's a question that I think Jacob might have an answer to. So someone in Serbia, they're having problem with regulations with insects as food. Do you have any ideas or indications to help solve that problem or to circumvent that at all?
For us, we just needed to prove that we're using a certified feed source. So as long as
Okay.
we're feed that is acceptable for doing livestock, we were okay. And then the other division might be between farming and processing. So we farm, but to process the freezing is still allowed in this facility as long as we have a log of the temperature that it's kept at. But
Okay.
then for processing, for roasting and milling and all that other stuff, we have to go to a certified food kitchen or feed facility of some kind and do it there. So maybe breaking the process up into a couple of steps and saying we are just farmers, not
Okay.
processors. Might hopefully they will have some luck there. And also, the EU has relatively well developed guidelines for it. So I'm not sure if they fully apply in the geography this person is in, but
Yeah.
leaning on some of those for precedent may help as
Okay.
well.
Do you know if it's, you said in the EU, is the UK, do you know if they also are a part of that? I know that's not in your jurisdiction, but do you have any idea if they allow insects as food in the UK? Someone was asking.
I believe they do, yes. At least just, as of from 10 years ago till at least last year, it was allowed. So I don't know if there's been any
Okay,
changes, but yes, they are allowed. Other than that,
great, great. So is there, both maybe one of you can answer this, is there an umami factor to these, to eating these?
Huh.
Maybe?
So it is so it's very different. So you're looking at a very very light shellfish shrimp-ish
Okay,
type flavor. So like when you're accenting like a different flavor, not really. And then after you toast them and you grind them, there's a nutty flavor. So there's a two sort of different
yeah,
flavor
yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
yeah.
As far as umami goes, it's an acquired taste, and when you get your mind around it, then
Okay.
that's kind of where you want to get to.
All right. And so I'm just heading questions. I'm not even getting to my questions because there's so much action in the Q&A. So someone has asked, what's the lifespan for a cricket, Jacob? 'Cause I have no idea how long they live for.
it depends on temperature. We are, as you can see, I'm kind of melting in here. We're at 34 Celsius, which is about the upper limit of what we can feasibly. If we go any higher, we'll overheat them. The warmer
Okay.
it is, the faster they grow. At this
Okay.
pace, we'll get to a full-sized cricket or the optimal size cricket in about 27 days. To get them
Yep.
to lay eggs, we need them at about 34, 35 days, and within 50 days, maybe 60 days, they are unfortunately at the end of their life.
Okay.
But you can get multiple times that at a cooler temperature.
All right. So someone else is asking, are any of the parts of the crickets inedible? Or can you eat all of it?
You eat all of
Uh,
it.
we yeah, correct. They're
Everything gets eaten. There's no waste. So it's a no waste cooking method, which is fabulous, right?
And that's where you get all of the good prebiotic and probiotic because
Yeah.
you eat the entire animal
So
insect.
someone
if I
someone
if
else
I
is that.
may
Yeah, go ahead.
if I may add to that, so that may tie into a bit of a bigger philosophy where maybe everybody can participate in this.
Yes.
So the idea with bugs, they have a 500 million year old relationship with plants. So
Yes.
that's really old even by evolutionary standards. Then if you think about it like layers of sediment and geography, the
Yes.
longer something lives together, the more evolutionary innovation they get together, they collaborate on. And so as you go further with plants, there's a lot of synergies we're finding with the frass and growing plants and how it can stimulate growth and so on. And with animals and humans, even though we have a much shorter relationship with them in terms of evolution, 100,000 years or however far back you want to go, and we've stopped eating them, which is fine. Our culinary evolution has maybe taken a bit of a detour. Maybe we'll come back, but our bodies don't know that. The microbiome in our gut doesn't know we stopped eating bugs. And so there should be, if you look at it through that lens of that long evolutionary history, there should be lots of benefits that we can give our microbiome and perhaps other aspects of our body by eating insects, or not, whether it's eating them in terms of food or using them as a nutritional supplement. There should be lots of synergies in our bodies and the animals that we farm with that as well. So that kind of goes back to eating the whole cricket, even though there might be in the future deshelling technologies like for shrimp and stuff. There may be something to eating that exoskeleton, that chitin, and perhaps other chemicals that exist in the parts we may not normally eat. So I just wanted to add that. And so therefore, it's a very new field and anybody can innovate. Anybody, anywhere can investigate these things through that lens, whether it's in culinary or farming or growing other stuff using insect derivative components.
That's amazing. Your knowledge is broad and wide, and I love it. I love your excitement for it as well. Even though you've been doing this for some time, you're so in, and I appreciate that. How much protein does it actually contain? Can you do like per gram or per 100 grams or something like that?
I think usually when we measure it, it's as a percentage of their weight. So I think they're kind of close to other animals, chicken, beef, I believe. So crickets are usually in around the 30th percentile protein in their wet weight. When we process them and roast them, they go much higher, so 60, 70%. And you can kind of do anywhere in between that range if you want, depending on how much you process them.
So
and do you have
as a visual for a chef, like 1 cup of cooked quinoa is 8 grams of protein. 2 tablespoons of crickets are 20 grams of protein.
Wow, right?
So, as a visual.
And full amino acids as well. So
Yeah.
nutritionally very sound.
That's right.
That's a great alternative. So how do you have to label for allergens on this, or do you?
It was thought that there's a shellfish allergy applies to crickets and other insects. Lately, the research coming, kind of the state of the debate, it's not fully decided, but the state of the debate seems to be suggesting that they may not be, that allergy may not apply. So if you're allergic to shellfish, you may not be allergic to bugs. And so we don't really know. There is no compelling evidence to show that there are allergies there yet. And perhaps that may make sense because, it's commonly said, and I believe it's true, you're never more than 3 or 4 feet away from 1 or 2 meters away from an insect, no matter where you are in your life. And so they've been around us, whether we like it or not, our whole lives, probably on us when we're sleeping. So it would make sense that we have not a lot of allergies in that area.
Yeah, there's one of those things they say that while you're sleeping, you eat so many bugs a year anyways with your mouth open, right? So I guess we're doing it already. We're just going to do it in a more culinary way. So I want to talk to that. How do you encourage, or what sort of ways have you encouraged people to try and use the cricket powder or the crickets whole or freeze-dried, whichever way that you've done it?
Me or Jacob?
So we're kind of oh, go ahead, Mark.
Well, again, the powder is an easy one because I encourage them, because you talk about all the protein, you talk about all the health benefits. Put it in a smoothie, put it in a drink, put it in baking. That's easy. The harder one is the visual, which is the raw one, because they can see it. But really, when you do the like, if you toast them, you make them crispy, and you put a spice on them. Everybody likes potato chips. Everyone likes French fries. That's the most compelling way that people like to see it, and there's a shock value there, and they love it.
Yeah. I know I tried it once. A few years ago, we had the League of Innovators at the college, and I made a pasta. You had given me a pasta dough recipe, and it worked so well. And the wow factor that people were having a protein-filled pasta, and we did it with just light spring vegetables and really nice aglio olio. They were blown away because they're like, I'm getting my protein, I'm having something that's healthful, easily digestible. Someone's asking, is there like a normal temperature to cook them at, or is there a highest temperature you should cook them to, or is there sort of a deterioration point outside of burning, obviously?
They like when they're in their frozen or raw frozen form, they kind of change color a little bit like shrimp. They're
Okay.
so very, very small. You just cook them in like a stir fry or a deep fry, and they pop up like that if you like to. When you roast them, you want to roast them like anything like nuts too. So like maybe like 140 degrees slowly until they get dry. It's really easy when you pick them up and they're dry and they crumble, they're good,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And that same product is the stage where you then grind it up into a powder. So,
Okay.
no real high cooking.
Okay.
Um, and
Slow
none,
and slow
none
and
of that.
easy then.
Yeah, slow and easy.
So we've talked about the flavor of them and maybe some specific dishes. How can we, I guess, suggest to chefs, and either of you, you can decide who would like, how can we suggest to chefs, how do they present these dishes to diners? Because they're going to say, oh my gosh, how am I going to put this on my menu and people not get freaked out about it, right?
Well, I'll hit that a little bit. My mom, who told me in the early 70s, went to Mexico and they had chocolate dipped crickets
Yeah.
back then. So if you can make it recognizable for something that people like right now, like chocolate or some sort of smoothie or something that is hip, and you could tell them the story and make them feel comfortable that you know what you're doing with it. That's going to be the number one understanding of that. You are the subject matter expert. You're the chef's jacket. You tried it. You've tested it. It tastes good. And this is what you're going to be offering people. Kind of like any other food.
Yeah. So, I mean, putting that spin on it and doing something familiar is always the best way. Like when you're doing a new trend on food, it's the same thing, right?
Mm.
Put something familiar like the hot dog, like a familiar bread or a breakfast pastry, and put it with it. People are going to enjoy it that way. But what do you
And
think?
call it out too. You don't want to hide it. You don't want to
Yeah.
hide it and like surprise. That's not going to go well for anybody.
So someone is asking, I'm going
And
to
I
get back to
wonder,
Jacob. Yeah. Jacob, I want to get back to
I
you
wonder
on.
if the whole, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
wonder if the whole farming industry, insect agriculture industry, can participate in kind of as a supporting player in that effort. Because if we're successful, this should be, we're calling it integrated insect agriculture. It should create many byproducts, cricket frass,
Yes.
nutritional supplements, potentially medicinal supplements, and other things like that. And this can be done in urban environments where people see the farmers, and we do micro crops that we maybe sell as separate types of foods as well. And so if people get used to seeing insect products and insect involved people in other areas of their life, it may reduce kind of the sort of surprise factor when you see or hear about insects being closer to you. And
Yeah,
in that way, we may
normalize
make
it.
it a more normal part of our ecosystem and biosphere, and therefore it may help in people's perception of it being as part of their food or
So
nutrition.
I love that you're talking about the byproduct. So tell me, I am your biggest fan for one of your byproducts, and my plants are very thankful for what you've done. Tell us a little bit about,
That's great to hear.
sustainably speaking, what you've created as a byproduct from doing this cricket farming.
So this is one of the most exciting things that we've been dipping into, and it seems like the cricket shells that any insect shells actually that fall off of the bugs have properties where they can first of all, they give the plant a kick. The plant starts to think it's under attack by bugs, and so it has this immuno type of response where it grows thicker stems and leaves, more wax and resin, so it gets shinier. It blooms earlier and for longer because it thinks it's going to die, so it wants to get its seeds out. Now, in the long, that's a short-term kind of kick that it gets. But in the long term, we've noticed that it actually helps things bloom much more vigorously and longer where they would normally get exhausted. And so what we think is it's stimulating the microbiome in the soil, or if you're
Oh,
doing hydroponically in the water. And that essentially, it's fungi, mycorrhizae networks, bacterial colonies, and these all help serve as kind of extensions of the roots of the processing capacity of the soil, so it transforms nutrients into other useful chemicals that the plant can then uptake, and it creates a more vigorous ecosystem for the plant to grow in. And this might be counterintuitive to existing agriculture practices,
Yeah.
where we dump a bunch of necessary but chemicals on there that would prevent this activity from happening. And so that it has drought resistance, frost resistance. Interestingly, it even resists pests, because the same bugs that process the cricket shells or insect shells also eat the eggs of any bugs that might be trying to infest the plant. So it actually kills other bugs too. And that lets us farm and cultivate things in and around bug farming that can then serve as feed sources or additional sources for human food. And therefore we can reduce the footprint to maybe that can, one day help colonize Mars or something like that, if it's 1% the size of normal farming, or even less.
You have almost no waste then, though, because even the waste from the crickets become useful product to me growing fabulous basil and tomatoes, because it is really making my garden grow fabulous. So thank you for that. Mark has shared with me some of the frass. This is sort of the shells and cricket poop and all that, and it's like a fabulous fertilizer, right? So that needs to get onto the market. So there's a few last questions before we're sort of closing off things. Is there any cleaning of the product? Like, are they washed, or do they need to be treated with anything before they're used?
So Jacob, I'm going to ask you, when you freeze them, you just freeze them, right?
I think he's frozen.
Mostly, yes. So hard to come out of the bins. Oh, did it freeze?
Right. So I've always received them already processed, and there's been no washing in the processing. And there's like, I don't see any dirt on them. There's no graininess to them. There's no earthiness to them. So yeah, there's no washing.
Okay. And is there any culinary studies done on this yet? Like formal research studies that you know of?
Formal, I don't know. There was a protein. Jacob and I met them. You have to remind me those two brothers that had that food incubator.
The Tedeschi brothers. They're
Tell
still
that
around. Yeah,
story.
shout out to them. But yes, they're no longer. I think they actually sold to a European company, and then it kind of got just diffused somewhere in Europe.
But they had a patent about doing a protein from a part of the cricket that was
Tofu-like substance. Yeah.
tofu-like, yeah. So there's been studies like that, and it's been supported by some of the universities too. And I think, again, Jacob could speak to that better than I could.
So there is something, some kind of processing you can undertake to make the cricket in its entirety, once you convert it into powder, to be soluble in water. And once you can do that, you can start to make tofu-like things and other stuff out of it. Otherwise, it may have some other, taste and texture factors left in it.
Absolutely. So I guess sort of my thought is, because we're speaking to chefs all around the globe, if you could say one sort of practical steps that chefs watching today who want to explore insect protein, what would you say that one practical step they could do towards this would be?
Like, to try it out?
Yeah.
Well, I would first and all, I would try it out in the powder form, and I would just like take a favorite recipe of like a pizza dough or a bread and cut out 10% of the flour and put that in and try it out like that.
Yeah.
Put it in a smoothie, just like play with it a little bit and taste it, and you'll get the understanding of the nut and how you can balance the flavors.
Okay. And this is so exciting. I mean, someone even wrote here a few years ago, if someone saw an insect in their food or something like that, they would have been completely unacceptable or even closed down the restaurant. But today we're making revolution in the world of food, and crickets are no longer seen as pests, but as a clean, sustainable source of protein. They're like, this is bold, and they're really loving this truly innovative idea that you have worked on, and you work so hard on, Jacob, every single day, and keeping all your babies safe and making sure they grow well. What is the biggest compelling argument for doing this, I guess?
I think we can't stop innovating. We're not at a place yet where it's sufficiently more efficient than existing agriculture, and we're maybe 20, 30% better and smaller in footprint. We need to be at 1%. And if we can do that, we will increase the food security, because if you imagine right now, we're using most of the world's agricultural lands for food production. So if there's a conflict in Ukraine or climate change or political instability, prices go up and the people who are poorest suffer the most. If we can reduce the footprint of farming by pursuing this integrated approach, or we use the bugs to farm other things and those other things feed the bugs, we can improve food security, and then we can make a real difference that will show up in cost and sustainability, and hopefully democratize the food production process as well. And in doing so, it opens up the possibility that you can eat them if you want. If we have amazing culinary innovators like you guys, we can make it palatable, but you can feed it to chickens or fish or anything. And because it's so much more efficient, you're still shrinking that footprint by a factor of 100, maybe even we think up to 1/3000th is about the upper theoretical limit.
Wow.
And that's what we're really after, is to generate that kind of efficiency to make the world a better, hopefully make the future a brighter place.
Absolutely. I mean, making food more accessible to everyone is really what the Feed the Planet is all about in our Sustainability Around the World webcast. The one last question that people want to know, and it's burning, I've got it 3 different ways, is what is the cost per kilo on this if someone were to buy some, I guess either freeze-dried or powder, or they want to know what that looks like?
So right now, at the size that we're at, we could probably sell it for a frozen pound about $4, 4 Canadian dollars per pound frozen. It would be, the processing is our we do it in small batches. We're just scaling up now. So that will usually 3 pounds of frozen produce 1 pound of roasted or powder. So about $15 or so would be the cost for the powder or the roasted. But scaling up would drastically drop that, because most of that is labor costs and other things.
Well, you've really brought excitement. People are asking for recommendations of places in the EU where they could buy this, or how they can get in touch with you. What we can do is, if there is a way to reach out to you later, I can have them reach out to World Chef's office. We'll connect them with you and see if they're really excited about this, how they can do more with it. I want to thank you, Mark, and you, Jacob, for such an insightful and energizing conversation. It's clear that insect protein is not a novelty. We need to normalize it, bring it to the tables and kitchens and restaurants everywhere. It's about sustainability. You can hear it's about nutrition, innovation. It's all the pieces that our heartstrings sing to. And I want to thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And thank you for everyone watching at home. Please note that on June 12th, we are going to have our next Sustainability Around the World webcast. It'll be at the UN Ocean Conference. We will be talking about some fabulous things down under the water, and really exciting. We've got a full panel that I'll be moderating for, and so mark that on your calendars for June 12th. Thank you, everyone at home all around the world, for watching us, and have a great rest of your day, everyone, and see you all later.